Vaswani Groups presents the session Books, Brands and Bharat. Literature meets Everyday India. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the speakers on stage. Harish Bhat in conversation with Sanjay Koppikar.
Today we have wonderful stories from especially the House of Tatas. And a lot of these stories, we are going to burst a lot of myths and forwards that you would have otherwise found in your WhatsApp, especially the WhatsApp uncles and aunties that would have sent you. So we are going to burst a lot of them. But nobody else can do it better than Mr. Harish Bhat. Today we have him as our guest here.
Thank you, Sanjay. I hope I am audible. Thank you. So I want to just introduce Sanjay to you first before we begin this conversation. I am very grateful to Sanjay for anchoring this session. Sanjay Koppikar is a serial entrepreneur. Since the age of 18 years, he is the co-founder and chairman of QuadWave, a software services company, and the co-founder and chief product officer of Evolute IQ, which is a new age agentic AI company looking at agentic AI-based automation platforms. But apart from his role as a serial entrepreneur, Sanjay is also a very avid writer with keen interest in books. He is the published author of 3 books, with 3 more in the pipeline, he informs me. Narova, his 3rd book, has been translated into 5 languages. And quite interestingly, he has started a platform called Million Mutinies to enable startups in various non-technology areas. So Sanjay, welcome and thank you very much for being here this
afternoon. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I would like to quickly introduce Mr. Harish Bhat. In fact, he's the last person who will need one introduction because he's phenomenally well known, especially the people who follow Tata Group. Harish Bhat, sir, is consider himself as a marketeer and an avid writer. Tata Group, he has been working for last 38 years. In the Tata Group, he has held many various high visibility positions. In fact, when he retired as a brand custodian. And prior to that, he was MD and CEO of Tata Tea. We all have tasted it and have seen how the brand got built, and now we know who was behind that as well. Prior to that, he was CEO of watches and jewelry business of Titan, built brands like Tata Tea, Chakra Gold Tea, Tanishq, Fast Track, Titan, Sonata, and finally even the Tata brand itself as a brand custodian. In 2022 and 23, Forbes listed him as the top 10 chief marketing officers in the world. Right? As an author, he has published around 7 books now. 4 of them were national bestsellers. Right? And he writes on corporate history, fiction, and poetry. That's an absolute wide variety of options there. He has been a columnist also for the Hindu business line for last 15 years, writing majorly on the marketing part of it. Please welcome Shri Harish Bhat.
Thank you.
Sir, one introduction that we did not do, so I'm going to start with that. So how many of you out there are Kannadigas? Okay, so good number of them. So I'm going to introduce him from a different angle because that is going to actually strike a chord with all of us. His maternal great-grandfather was none other than Rashtrakavi Shri Manjeshwar Goindpai. Okay, so that itself tells you how. So he has, as the others, he has Shri Rashtrakavi Goindpai has written so many. How do I call it? They are mammoth creations. If you look at what was written as Golgotha and Vaishakhi, especially Golgotha was the last day of Jesus, and Vaishakhi was the last day of Buddha. Again, apart from that, he has written Gilivindu, Nandadipa, and so many of them. All these creations were much even before even Karnataka happened, right? Sitting in a small place like Manjeshwar, which is currently in Kerala, if I'm not...
Yeah, on the border, but in Kerala.
Yeah. So he's been, and Shri Govind Pai was absolute representation of what we are trying to do here in Book Brahma. He had mastery over 22 languages, including some of the European languages, including Latin, Spanish, and so many other languages as well, right? And plus, he had apparently the tens of thousands of books cutting across 43 different languages. Imagine that. He himself was literally more than a library, right? So that was the part. The other one, many of us have been reading Sudha and all that from our childhood. His mother, Mrs. Jayanti Bhat, was a regular writer in Sudha in the Vanita Vibhag in the 80s. Now she is 90 years and still an active reader. Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you for that wonderful introduction and very generous words.
Yes, sir. So, taking a cue from this, so I want to start my first question in that legacy itself, right? So, you come with, you are born in Mangalore and speaking in Konkani majorly, and then moved to Tamil Nadu and Kerala for your educational and schooling part of it. Now you can navigate multiple South Indian languages. Of course, I spoke about your maternal great-grandfather. With so many languages that are coming in and all that. So how did it shape your worldview and how it has led you to what the business that you have taken up?
Very, very good question, Sanjay. I just want to start with a story about Manjeshwar Govind Pai, which my mother narrated to me, and which is not so much about his only being a literary figure, but about being a humanist. So Manjeshwar Govind Pai, of course, lived in the small village of Manjeshwar. And I am told that in that village once, when he was walking down the road, he saw a young Muslim girl, Fatima, sitting on the road and begging for alms. So he asked her, why are you begging? And she said, I have nothing to do. My brothers are unable to take care of me. So he apparently told her that, listen, why don't you work to earn a living? And she was physically, challenged. She could not walk. So he said, I will arrange, a cart for you to bring you to my house. And I would like you to do some work there. And if you do good work, I will pay you the amount. So she said, I don't know any work. What will I do? So he had a large farm with coconut trees. And the leaves used to fall down from the coconut trees. So he said, I will give you all the leaves which fall down every day. I would like you to take out the sticks from the leaves and make brooms out of them. Beautiful. And then I will pay you for every broom that you make. She came there. She earned her livelihood. So he did not give her just alms, but he gave us something which she could earn from her own creation and her own work. And my mother often narrates this as an instance of his wanting to give, poor people, needy people, and particularly needy women, dignity, with dignity of labor. And apparently she thereafter led a very good life thereafter. So this is a story that she has narrated more than once to me, which I thought I should mention. But yes, you're right. My upbringing had influences of South Indian states. My early schooling was all in Tamil Nadu, in Madurai, Coimbatore, and Salem. And I think early recollections of some Tamil poetry was through Tiruvalluvar and Tirukural, and I always used to be amazed that so much wisdom could be put into just one sentence or two sentences by Tiruvalluvar. But as I grew up, I think a definite influence on the style of writing and the emotions of writing came from the Tamil poet Kannadasan, who used to write lyrics for Tamil movies. So when I was in the maybe 9th, 10th standard, that was the time when you had movies like Padinaru Vaidinile, you had movies like Sigappu Rojagal being released with Kannadasan's lyrics. and with Ilayaraja's music, and that definitely made a huge impact on me. As much as a few years later, I think you had a very famous movie like Mundram Pirai, which also had Kannadasan's lyrics in it. So that definitely made an impact on me. I have always been amazed by the literary fluency that you see in the Tamil language. How well the literary language flows, what they call Sentamil, which is spoken. But on the other hand, later I went to Kerala in Kollam to do my studies. And with Malayalam, I have always been amazed with the musical fluency of the language. The language flows very musically, almost poetic in the way that it flows. And I think that has had some impact on how I write. So two very different languages, though they are just next door to each other.
Yeah, and you're right. So the Malayalam, when people speak it, you can actually start setting up a music background score, and then it becomes a music, right? So it's so beautiful to hear. Yeah,
that's correct.
Yeah. So in the same context, from Mangalore to corporate corridors, right? So there is something poetic about this. The boy from Mangalore who inherited the literary genes and then ending up as a custodian of India's most storied and trusted business house, right? Was this journey planned, or did this literature and business find each other in you? How did this happen?
So I would say the writing journey was not planned at all. I wrote because I felt I had to write. I wrote because there were stories which I thought I had to narrate. I've been writing since my school days for some school magazines, some middles for newspapers and so forth. And there was a point in my life when I was 50 years of age where I just felt that I should write a book. And that urge did not leave me. So I went up to my boss, who was the managing director of Titan here. I used to be in Titan in those days, and said, listen, I need to write this book. You need to give me leave for a few months. I'm sure he was a little shocked when I went to him the first time. But in all fairness to the Tata Group and Titan, they gave me a sabbatical to write my first book. And they encouraged me to write my first book.
Oh, wonderful. And that is the book about Tatas itself, right?
Tatas,
It is Tata Log.
Tata Log. Yeah. So the writing journey has not been planned. And then I have been writing a book whenever I felt like writing it. A little more disciplined in the last few years because I have now retired from my full-time role. The corporate career, I think, was more planned because I went and did an MBA, and then I got into the Tata Administrative Service and worked with them, and I loved marketing as a discipline, so I kept growing in that. So I think corporate career a little more planned, writing career was completely spontaneous.
Okay. Now we will get into more exciting part of it, because that is what actually is holding up so many people out here.
Yeah.
The Tata Chronicles, right? In your 38 years with Tatas, you have transitioned from building brands to chronicling them, right? What made you realize that these corporate stories needed to be told? Yeah. And how do you balance the role of an inside storyteller? This is very interesting for me because this was very intriguing. I can write a story about somebody, but when we are trying to write about the brand that we love so much, there is so much of bias already inbuilt, right? So how do you maintain that authenticity and yet tell those stories that are so important and required to be told?
Yeah. So let me answer both parts of your question. Okay. When I was a young student, reading books, the only business books that we actually had in India were books which were coming out of the United States and Europe. Right. I still remember Lee Iacocca's biography.
Oh yeah, I
which
remember.
Was making waves in those days. He was the head of Chrysler Corporation at that time. And I remember the one business book which impressed me a lot when I was doing my MBA, which was My Years with General Motors by Alfred P. Sloan, where he talks about how General Motors was built. But as I worked with the Tatas, I found so many inspiring stories within the Tata Group, which I myself had not known earlier, because they were not very publicized or not very well known, what Dorabji Tata did or what Jamshedji Tata did. And then I asked myself, why should we in India, as Indian managers, of course we should read global stories, but why should we also not read stories which emanate from our own country? You know, people of our own country who have done very well, because the Tatas, Birlas, Godrej, Reliance, all these are large companies built by Indian entrepreneurs. So I said, why as Indians should we not know these stories?
True.
And therefore I felt a need to chronicle some of these stories, which were very inspiring. and which can serve as inspirations for young entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and
Of course, I am with the Tata. I have been working with the Tatas, so naturally the first set of books I wrote were about the Tatas. Because I knew those stories and I knew a little bit about them and I could research them easily. But equally, such stories could be written about other large Indian corporates as well.
yeah. And plus, what happens is that I think we had couple of stories. Of course, we had the global stories during our IIM course here in Bangalore. But there were a couple of case studies that were actually brought in from Tata Groups itself of how these small units were brought back to business and all of that, with so many of these leaders that were brought from all these small corners of India, and then they took over the world, right? So those were brilliant stories.
I agree.
As well.
These days, I think you find many more case studies about the Tata Group, but that was not the case when I was a student. At that
And Indian ethos of working is so different
It is.
than the West, right? But then we take those books as the reference points and where these stories needed to be told, right?
Yeah, so you know, to imagine that Jamshedji Tata in the midst of colonial India, when the British were ruling us, and there was a lot of opposition from British viceroys of that time, including Lord Curzon, to imagine that was the oppressive atmosphere in which Jamshedji Tata created India's first steel plant, or created the Indian Institute of Science here in Bangalore, or created the Taj Hotel in Mumbai. That is amazing. I don't think entrepreneurs in many other parts of the world face similar challenges in the 1800s and 1900s. Yeah. Or Sumant Mulgaonkar in the work he did in creating Tata Motors, a world-class commercial vehicles plant. But the second part of your question, I fully recognize that I am very biased towards the Tatas. Having worked for 38 years, it's been my home for a long time. So I recognize that inherent bias in me, which means that when I chronicle something about the Tatas, it has to be very factual. I cannot embellish it. It has to be true to history. It has to be true to fact. And it is very important for me to chronicle positive stories, but also stories where the Tatas have not succeeded. Only then will readers get a good balance that here is a group that did all this. It succeeded in so many areas. It failed in a few areas. Because at the end of the day, we are like every other corporate, we are made of human beings. There will be successes and there will be lack of successes, and nothing wrong with that.
Right. So there are, of course, the authenticity part of it, and some stories about it, we will come back. But what is going to be more captivating for us, the Bangalore audience, is the Tata's love story about Bangalore. Yes. Right? So there are so many stories that we have heard, especially the way Swami Vivekananda met Jamshedji in a ship on his way to his famous Chicago convention, and then there you go, and then the meeting with Maharaja happens, and then ultimately Tata Institute, and now what is being called as the IISc, which is the premier institute of science in India, happens, right? So all these different stories that come in. But I remember you having spoken to you, and you have narrated so many other stories which are not there, known to the Bangaloreans, especially about the silk board, silk farm, and all of that. So
yeah, so firstly, let me correct you a little bit there. I think Swami Vivekananda did not meet, to the best of my knowledge, there was no direct meeting between Swamiji and the Maharaja, or even between Jamshedji Tata and the Maharaja. But Jamshedji Tata did meet Diwan Sheshadri Iyer, who was the Diwan to the Maharaja of Mysore, and it is through him that the Maharaja eventually donated the land which went into the creation of the Indian Institute of Science, and Jamshedji Tata left half his wealth to the creation of the Indian Institute of Science.
That should absolutely require a big hand.
And you're quite right, until today the Indian Institute of Science is the top ranked science university in the country. And even until today, if you take an auto rickshaw somewhere towards Malleshwaram and say, drop me at Indian Institute of Science, chances are that the auto rickshaw driver will ask you, are you telling me Tata Institute of Beka? I think that's the question that they will ask. So the Indian Institute of Science story is much better known, that Jamshedji Tata was the founder, and his statue is still there, just opposite the main building. But the story that I am very interested in telling you today is the story of another business that Jamshedji Tata founded in Bangalore called the Tata Silk Farm. How many of you have heard of the Tata Silk Farm? Where is it located? NR Colony. So I think many of you know, it is located just next to my house. I stay in Basavangudi and it's not too far. You just cross the road from there. In fact, my daughter studied in Kumaran School, which is within the Tata Silk Farm. So I've always wondered, why is it called the Tata Silk Farm? You know, what were the Tatas doing here? Because currently there is no silk farm there, to the best of my knowledge. So when I researched this history, what I found was that Jamshedji Tata once went to Japan. And when he went to Japan, he found the Japanese have become experts at making silk. They are, what is it called? Sericulture. They have become experts at sericulture, the art of making silk. So Jamshedji Tata apparently said, if the Japanese can make silk so well, why can't we make it within India? And why can't we use silk making to provide employment to ordinary Indians? Just like Japanese have used it to provide employment to Japanese. So he came to India and then he found out that Bangalore had the right temperate climate for silk making. And in fact, silk was very well known in the Mysore area, right? From Tipu Sultan's time, silk has been a flourishing industry, though it had fallen on bad days in the 1800s and early 1900s. So Jamshedji Tata then went back to Diwan Sheshadri Iyer and the Maharaja of Mysore, and they gave him a plot of land in NR Colony next to Basavangudi, where a silk farm could be established. And the reason he did it is he wanted to provide employment for Indians in a skilled area. He actually got two Japanese, Mr. and Mrs. Odzu. He got them to come to Bangalore and stationed them in the Tata Silk Farm near Basavangudi to actually teach Indians the art of reeling silk, the art of silk cultivation and so forth. And the Tata Silk Farm soon started making silk, and the silk which was made there was sent to Europe for testing. And it was classified as being amongst the best quality of silks worldwide. So there's a silk from the Tata Silk Farm. And that is how the Tata Silk Farm was created. And this actually encouraged the government of India to set up 3 or 4 more silk farms in different parts of the country. The early trainees, he got people, he gave internships and training to people free of cost to learn under this Japanese couple. And the early trainees of the Tata Silk Farm, at least 2 or 3 of them, then became some of the most senior officials when the Silk Board was created in Bangalore. So after Jamshedji Tata's demise, his sons were very busy with the creation of the steel plant and the hydroelectric power plant and so forth, which were much larger industrial projects. So they handed over the silk farm to the Salvation Army, which ran it for several years thereafter. Then it was converted to an orphanage. And now, of course, I think then after that, the commercialization of Bangalore took over, and just now you will only find housing plots and houses all over.
So those years where silk farm to silk board was easy transition, today it is not possible.
Today,
to even reach those 2
even
points.
Getting past the silk board is not an easy transition. Though hopefully the metro which has been launched today, the metro line, will help us get over it easier.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, but this is the story of the Tata Silk Farm. A beautiful story of how Jamshedji Tata wanted to create employment, and that's why that area is, the bus stop still says Tata Silk Farm. But I think the most intimate attachment that Jamshedji Tata had to Bangalore was his son, Dorabji Tata. Jamshedji Tata visited the home of a gentleman called H.J. Bhabha, who was the education supervisor, the education commissioner of Mysore state. And he thought that his daughter would make a very good match for his son.
Yes, I was coming to that, yeah.
And that is how Dorabji Tata got married to Mehri or Meherbai Tata. So even Jamshedji Tata's daughter-in-law is from Bangalore. So there are many professional and personal attachments to the city.
If I'm not wrong, she's a Cottonian, right? So Bishop Cotton.
Yeah, she studied at the Bishop Cotton School, and she was in those days, she was a tennis champion. She's won more than 60 tennis prizes.
Wow.
And she used to play tennis wearing the Parsi sari. Very proud of her Parsi heritage. So many stories there, but let me not distract from this conversation. I think there are many links between the Tatas and Bangalore. And even today, I think there are so many Tata Group companies in Bangalore. I have worked in Titan for many years. It's headquartered here in Bangalore. I worked in Tata Tea in Bangalore. Today there are many other companies which have come up in Bangalore, including just close to Bangalore in Hosur is where Tata Electronics is coming up.
So in the just now while we were connecting and all that is when we realized that he was heading Tata Tea when I was working along with Janagraha to provide technology for building one of the first voter consciousness and generation part of it called as Jagore. If anybody had seen it in 2007, 2008, 2009. Oh yeah, so Janagraha was there as a social front. We were the technology and possibly he was the one who was heading the CEO as a CEO.
In all fairness, I was the CEO after that.
Okay.
But yes, I was involved with the Janagraha
Beautiful.
campaign. I knew Ramesh Ramanathan very well. He and I have studied together at BITS Pilani.
Nice,
And that was one part of the genesis of that campaign.
That's another Bangalore story for you because Jagore initiative started very much in Bangalore, so that's, yeah. So one of the things that you did right in the context of Swami Vivekananda and Jamshedji is that you busted the myth. So I'm going to shift on to the myth busting, right? Thanks to WhatsApp and social media input, so we've got so many stories, right? So you don't know whether to believe it. Because even when you Google, you are going to find those same stories being perpetrated by so many other websites. So you don't even know what is authentic. So I remember one story that was being told was that, so proud of Tata Motors that they rejected so large supply of sumos to Pakistan and all that. And then Tatas had to give a statement saying that there is no contract between India and Pakistan for exchange of any vehicle, so there is no question of acceptance or rejection of this. So you see so many fake stories that are going around, right? One of the stories that you had mentioned was about the start of Taj Hotel itself. So if you could just narrate
that story. So I agree with you. In this era of WhatsApp and such digital media, people trust whatever is coming on WhatsApp without even checking the authenticity of that story. So, of course, the myth about Taj came even in the pre-WhatsApp days. But the popular story about the Taj is, of course, India's and Mumbai's first 5-star hotel it's in Mumbai. It's a very proud symbol of our country. It's withstood 2 world wars, 2 pandemics, 1 terror attack, and it's still a very proud symbol of our country today. But the popular myth is that Jamshedji Tata built the Taj because a European hotel in Mumbai did not permit him to enter. And they didn't permit Indians to enter in general, and they did not permit Jamshedji Tata to enter because they were meant only for Europeans and for foreigners.
That's a fake story.
But that's a fake story. That's a fake story. It's what is called an apocryphal story, which has been making the rounds, because Jamshedji Tata would not have had a small mind like that. What actually happened? Why did the Taj get built? Such a massive hotel. What happened was in the 1890s, Mumbai was struck by the bubonic plague. Just like the pandemic that we had a couple of years before,
right.
The bubonic plague struck Mumbai in a big way, and millions of people ran away from the city of Mumbai. This was the financial capital of our country, and millions of people ran away from Mumbai, and no one was coming into Mumbai after that because of the bubonic plague. So Jamshedji Tata, and the bubonic plague was nearing its end, Jamshedji Tata said, I should give this city a new resplendent symbol, which would make Mumbai and every Indian proud. And he discussed this with the then editor of the Times of India, Lovat Fraser, and he said, one of the best symbols that I can provide is a luxury hotel, which will be the most luxurious hotel east of the Suez Canal. And that is the motivation. He went to Germany and got lifts from Germany. He went to Paris and got spun pillars from the ballroom. There were Turkish baths. He had an ice factory which was in the hotel to make sure that cold air was blown into rooms. This is before air conditioning had come in. And it was one of the first commercial buildings in Mumbai to be lit up by electricity. So this is why he created the Taj Mahal Hotel in Mumbai, which is the fact. And the other story about him being turned away from a European hotel, there is absolutely no basis and no evidence for that story that I have come across.
Wonderful. In fact, it was a goosebumps moment. So if people notice, I literally had to
It is, you
Yeah,
know,
it is wonderful.
and apparently, you know, when he how did he went to some Bombay Port Trust auction, and they were auctioning land, and he leased this five acres of land to build the Taj on, and then he came home, and his sisters were there, and the rest of his family was there, and he told them that, you know, I have leased this land on an auction, and I'm going to build a luxury hotel here. Apparently, his sisters told him, listen, on one hand, you want to build a steel plant. On the other hand, you want to create a university somewhere in Bangalore. And now you're going to also build a Batar Khana, which means a restaurant and a food place for people. Apparently, they themselves did not believe that he could do something like this. But that's the story of how it happened.
Yeah, and some visionary, right? So every...
The lady is putting up her hand. No, I have not found any evidence to that. Yes, there is an apocryphal story around that also, that the hotel was built backwards, forwards and all that, but that's not true. It was built in this place where it is built today because he wanted the rooms to get the sea breeze coming in the evening. You know, these were days before air conditioning. That is why the rooms are facing the sea, and the grand entrance to the hotel, original grand entrance, is at the back.
Oh, okay.
No, not because someone built it the wrong way around.
Okay, nice. So, yeah, so then we will move on to the other interesting part of it. We know that one of the things that actually troubles us is that Air India again had a lot of stories around it, how Tata's built that, and then the state took it over, and then now again, of course, it is back into Tata fold. So the challenges that the Tatas have faced in the past, right? So with relation to now, Air India is also one of the challenges that we see with, of course, the brand almost getting hit, and plus the Tatas have taken it up. A lot of things, because Tatas have taken it up, gets amplified more because everybody wants to target that. So what were the complex situations that you have seen in the past that Tatas have faced, and how they have coped up with that? What kind of future do you think that we know that Tata's brand is trusted and is associated and it is going to prevail?
Sure. So I think that's a very good question. With Air India, of course, the single-minded purpose is to make it a world-class airline that Indians can be proud of. But there have been many, many other situations in the past which the Tatas have faced huge challenges, and there have been turnarounds which have been crafted. You know, one example I will give from the more recent past is a company that I am very proud of today, Tata Motors. If you look at Tata Motors today, you have you know, Tata Harrier, Tata Nexon, Tata Punch. Tata Punch was the largest selling Indian car in the year 2024.
Yeah, they are giving multinational cars a run for their money.
Multinational cars a run for their money. They're market leaders in electric vehicles in India today. But few years in the past, Tata Motors was not at the number 3 rank or the number 2 rank that it is at today. It was at a much lower rank in terms of the vehicles it was making, and it was still cash negative at that time. Today it's a very, very cash positive, very cash positive business. So that has been, I think, a large turnaround of a huge magnitude, the progress that Tata Motors has made. Tata Steel faced very difficult business challenges. Tata Steel faced very difficult business challenges. They had to become the most cost-efficient steel producer in the 1980s and 1990s, and there were many steps they took towards that and became the lowest cost producer, and then Tata Steel flourished after that.
Yeah, naturally. Again, even taking over companies across the globe everywhere.
So
right?
I think ups and downs in business, and I think turning around businesses which have not been doing well has happened at many points in Tata history.
But I have seen some of the failures also, right? So especially the financial part of it, banking and...
So there have been failures in the Tata group. No corporate group, and certainly not the Tatas. I have never claimed in my books or my writings that the Tatas are a perfect group. In fact, in my first book, Tata Log, where I defined the group by 4 Ps, I said they are purposive, they are principled, but the last P that I used, I also said that they are imperfect, not perfect. Many businesses of the Tata Group have not succeeded. Jamshedji Tata, our founder, you may not know, You know, his steel company is very famous today. The hydroelectric company is very famous. But how many of you know that he started a shipping line which could not succeed? The Tata shipping line. Because the British government strongly subsidized the P&O line, eventually he had to shut down the Tata shipping line. It's a story by itself. Similarly, the Tata Group, like you rightly said, did enter banking in the 1920s and then withdrew from that area. So that again was not a very
There is one story about pledging their gold, personal gold and all that.
Yeah, so that is Tata Steel actually. And you're right. Thank you for reminding me of that. You know, Tata Steel ran into a very, very strong business downturn in the 1920s. In the 1910s, there was World War I. And because of World War I, the demand for steel collapsed, particularly in Japan, which was a large customer for Tata Steel. And because the demand for steel collapsed, Tata Steel had this huge factory in Jamshedpur and not enough production. So at one point, Dorabji Tata, who was the chairman of the Tata Group at that time, received a telegram from Jamshedpur saying, we don't have money to pay wages to our workers for next week. And I am amazed at what he did. Without blinking an eyelid, after considering the problem. And of course, Tata Group was much smaller at that time. Tata Steel was the largest company. His wife and his wife I have already referred to, Meherbai Tata, who was from Bangalore originally. His wife and he pledged their entire wealth, including their jewelry, which was worth about 1 crore of rupees. And this included his wife's famous diamond called the Jubilee diamond, which at that time was the largest diamond in the world, 254 carats, twice the size of the Kohinoor diamond. Wow. They pledged their entire wealth, including the Jubilee diamond, they pledged it to the Imperial Bank of India. The State Bank of India was called the Imperial Bank of India at that time. They pledged it to the Imperial Bank of India. They raised 1 crore of rupees as a loan for working capital, and that was how Tata Steel managed to sustain during that very difficult period of time, protecting jobs, protecting the salaries of their workers and so forth. After a few years, of course, Tata Steel revived after the residual effect of World War I had gone away. And then Tata Steel started becoming prosperous again, and Dorabji Tata could then reclaim his pledge from the bank. But for a chairman to pledge his entire personal wealth to save a company from collapse, I thought was phenomenal. And if any of you go to Jamshedpur today, please do take some time to visit the Dorabji Tata Park in Jamshedpur, where Tata Steel have created a huge steel replica of the Jubilee diamond, just to pay tribute to the act of Dorabji Tata during that time. So,
in fact,
so difficult times are there with every corporate, and the Tata Group has gone through them as well. But this was an amazing incident for me to hear something like this happening.
Yeah, that's so true. In fact, all entrepreneurs here, so I'm sure their families are watching, I hope. So we've all gone through those kinds of things. So that means, yes, we are on the right path.
Yes, that is true. Because I think as entrepreneurs, you are a serial entrepreneur yourself, and you would know, the pain that happens when your business goes through a tough patch.
Yeah.
And
the tensions of paying the salaries on the right day, right time.
Yeah, which even someone like me, I've only been in the corporate world, but as an entrepreneur, you'd realize the value of the story much more, perhaps.
Yeah. So with little less than 12 minutes remaining, so I think we will move out of the Tata group story, so we could move to the other creative universe.
Sure.
Of yours.
Though it's very, very challenging in India to move out of the Tata. All of us use some Tata product or the other.
Absolutely. So we could go on the Tatas only. We can have one just complete conference only discussing about Tata stories, and still we will be left with so many. Right? About your own journey, right? From boardrooms to bookshelves. So your bibliography spans from Office Secret to an extreme love of coffee. I'm sure a lot of coffee lovers here in the audience, right? And to poetry then, right? How does this switching between this corporate wisdom, especially one of the things that I loved, one of the statements in one of your books was about dump the slides, add power to your points, right? Very pun intended, I'm sure. And the creative fiction, restless lives, and exercise the different paths of your writer's mind? How do you manage these, touching upon these different parts of it?
Yeah, so the dump the slides I'll talk about a little later perhaps if we have time, but I strongly believe that, rather than put time and effort into creating very beautiful slides, I think putting time and effort into content is far more useful. That's why I said dump the slides. But, writing, for those of you who are writers or who have aspiration to be writers, I find that writing corporate history, chronicling the Tata Group, requires a very left-brained approach. You have to research the story, you have to interview people, you have to document the story, making sure that the facts are absolutely correct. You have to ensure that factually there is no mistake that you make. But you also have to narrate the stories so that they speak to the head and heart of people. Then in the writing of the story, you need a little bit of a right-brained approach because you have to, you cannot make it like a corporate story. It has to be a human story if people have to narrate, if people have to relate to it. So chronicling is far more logical in its approach. Whereas writing fiction, writing a novel like the novel about coffee or writing poetry, it is more a product of your imagination. It is not a product of logic. In fact, the whole extreme love of coffee, there is very little logic about it. There is more fantasy in that story, ghosts and coffee and all that. So, but I love that part of writing as well, because when you write fiction, you're like a dictator. You can make the story go as you want it to. There is no fact that you have to adhere to. I can't write both together. I have to either write this or write that at any point in time. And that's because I think my mind either works in the logical frame or the imagination frame, and having it work in a sustained way like that is good for the writing endeavor.
Yeah. So then comes to the title that you mentioned, right? An extreme love of coffee. There is something so delightfully specific about this title, right? So is this your way of celebrating the small obsessions that make life interesting? What was behind that, right? What was the story behind that?
So this is a novel about coffee. For those of you who love coffee, it's probably the first novel themed on Indian coffee. And it's a mystery set amongst the plantations of Coorg, but also they go to other parts of South India and other parts outside India also. It's a romance between a young boy and a girl, but they are traveling through the plantations in search of something.
Beautiful,
so I'm not going to spill the beans, so to say, on this forum just now, on the rest of the story. But there were two reasons. Every book I write with some reason. And there were two reasons I wrote that. One is, of course, I love coffee, and I've been experimenting with different kinds of coffee through my life. But the second thing is, Indian coffee is not celebrated the world over as much as it should be. Indian Arabicas and Indian Robustas are amongst the best made in the world. Indian washed Robustas can stand up to a Robusta from any other part of the world. Mm-hmm. And some of the micro-lot Indian Arabicas that Tata Coffee makes or other companies make are very beautiful, mellow coffees. Mm-hmm. You know, the Monsoon Malabar coffee, for instance, which is made in India, has been renowned in Europe for centuries together. But even then, Indian coffee is not occupying the same exalted space as a Colombian coffee or as a coffee from Kenya in other parts of the world. So I said, why not celebrate Indian coffee? And rather than write a detailed documentary about Indian coffee, I decided to put it into the form of a novel so that it becomes far more readable. And then I love fantasy books. Fantasy, I love the Harry Potter series, for instance, but I also used to love the Da Vinci Code, you know, the books where a mystery is solved through clues and so forth. So I kind of combined the two into a kind of fantasy mystery novel when I wrote An Extreme Love of Coffee.
Wonderful.
There is a ghost in the novel as well, a ghost which likes coffee, but the rest of the characters are human.
Yeah, that ghost, I'm sure, must be that Sulochana from Someshwara, right? Okay. Yeah, so all the coffee lovers, when you go out, have an extra cup of coffee, read that book, and find the mystery also behind that. Now coming to the last part, which is the poetry section, right? So the prose writer, I have, as of course a novelist and all that, I have difficulty in comprehending poetry. Only in extreme disgust and despair is when I have written something. I don't know whether I to call it poetry at all, but I put it out, and then people said a very nice poetry. So then I said, okay, it must be poetry then. Yeah, so it is not certified poetry in any way, right? So but then in your construct, especially in Restless Lives, you have these pieces of dog at the burning ghats, or linking stars with fireflies, right? So you usually it does not come in your mind. So all these titles suggest that deeply observant kind of characteristics of your own, right? What goes beneath this poetry part of it? If you will define that,
Yeah.
and then
So-
then to conclude also, if you can take up one of your favorite poetries and read that as well.
So, like I told you right at the beginning, I grew up with the lyrics of Tamil movies. That's what songs, let me say movie songs of Tamil movies. I spoke about Padinaru Vaidinile, I spoke about Sigappu Rojagal, I still hum some of those songs. Or Mundram Pirai. The thing about poetry is, I think it can express emotions that prose cannot. The deepest and most difficult of emotions, prose, it's very difficult sometimes to express. Whereas poetry can express them very fluently, and poetry can fire your imagination much more, I think, than prose can. So, when I find an emotion I'm grappling with which cannot be expressed very clearly in prose, I think it's poetry that I turn to. But a lot of the poetry in Restless Lives is actually poetry which comes from a sense of listlessness, a sense of sadness, or maybe a sense of melancholy. Those are the emotions, but some of them are very celebratory poems as well. So I know we just have a couple of minutes before we go. So let me, so this is the book of poetry that I wrote. It's my only volume of poetry. All my other books are either corporate history or marketing. So I am going to read out a poem that I wrote to one of the greatest Indians of our times, someone whom I've admired greatly. So I wrote a poem which was a tribute to President APJ Abdul Kalam, who all of us, I am sure, admire. And this is the poem. Can I read it out for you?
Sure, please.
The title of this poem is Thank You for Giving Us Wings of Fire. And this is how it goes. I'll stand and read it out if you don't mind. You gave our minds great wings of fire. You gave our hearts fine thoughts of gold. You took our sights higher and higher to a great strong nation beyond the fold. You urged us, come, walk, inspire, dream your dreams big and bold. These missiles of the mind that you made for us, where were they forged and what did they bear? How did you charm this entire land with your twinkling smile and your flowing hair? You taught us to grow, and yet like a child, how did you lead us to this fantastic fair? Missile man, hear us once more, for we rise to the wondrous sounds we heard. We rise to thank you for paving this path, for reaching our youth with passion stirred. We the nation, we wish you well as you fly away on your beautiful bird. So I wrote
Beautiful.
this soon after he passed away. And this is meant for very young people to be inspired as well. I've got my nephews here, Vikram and Vivek, who are sitting here. I hope they have heard this poem, and they and people of their generation will be inspired by people like APJ Abdul Kalam.
Yeah, in fact, adding anything beyond this will actually take away the sweetness or the coffee flavor that you would have had, right? So I don't think we should add anything more. I think we all should give a round of big applause for Tata Group and for Shri Harish Bhat, and of course for APJ Abdul Kalam, whom he had given a wonderful tribute.
Thank you very
sir.
much. Thank you for being here this afternoon and listening to me. These are the stories I've grown up with and some of which I have narrated. And I would, of course, be delighted if some of you decide to read any of the books that I have authored. And those books have my email address on them. I would be delighted to receive your feedback as well. Thank you for being here today on a very rainy afternoon.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. That was the session presented by Vasavi Group.